Welcome, everyone. This is Equipment Zone. I'm Terry Combs, and we are going to talk today about our index, or the Equipment Zone DTG Printing Index, to use Jay's proper term for it. And we're going to be talking about category number 4. But before we do that, I want to welcome in my co-hosts. One is Amy Krulowitz out there in New Jersey. Yeah, hello, Amy. And also joining us will be Roy Huseman. He'll be sharing some live demonstrations. Hey, Roy.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Jay Basel's also joining us. He's not going to be on camera, but he's going to be sharing questions as we go along. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And let's get this thing kicked off. So we've already talked about the Equipment Zone DTG Printing Index. That index is basically the 5 categories to get that perfect print, that we say that we want to have a shirt that prints just like the ones at the trade shows. And these are the 5 things that we do to get those perfect prints. We've already talked about graphics. We've already talked about the substrates. We've talked about pre-treat. Today, we're going to talk about the environment, and more than just the environment, we're going to talk about the environment and maintenance. And so, Amy, are you ready to get us kicked off?
I'm ready. Right. Hi, everyone. So glad you could join us today. So I'm going to be talking about location and environment a little bit, and just give you some little tips as to what we at Equipment Zone have found works best through the years. What I always like to say is the 2100 and the whole DTG system, it really is happiest in an office type environment, but that doesn't mean you can't put it in your basement or your garage. We have many customers who have the systems in their basements and garage, and it all works really well there. There are some things that you should be thinking about, though. One of them is, do you have other equipment in the same place? And that would be, let's say you have an embroidery machine. You know, I've talked to a gentleman last week who wanted to know where he should put the printer in relation to his embroidery machine. And it brought up a couple of really good points. The first thing, of course, we know about embroidery machines is that there are threads and there are fibers, and there are dust fibers. So you don't want it to be right next to your embroidery machine if you can avoid that. You also want it to be in an area where the air can be cleaned. Then if you've got fibers flying through the air, it's always good. You could get one of those air cleaners that you can buy, not too expensive, and that would help. It has filtration in it, and that will help take out some of the little fibers that come off the embroidery machine. But you can certainly have it in the same room, just not right up against each other. The other thing you may want to do when you're not using the printer is cover it. If you do have other equipment in the area, you know, the Epson printer can be turned off every night, and it can be left alone for a week or even 2 weeks if you don't have work or if you're doing other projects or going away. So we always suggest, you know what, if you can put a cover on it, that would even be that much better. It would really help. So you want to make sure that the dust fibers in the air stay away from the printer. And keep it covered when not in use. It's just, you know, good hygiene, as I like to say.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, Amy, we do have people say to us, but what if I want to do an event? And as anybody who's ever been to a trade show, and I think every one of these sessions we talk about, remember when we used to do trade shows? Well,
remember those days.
Yeah, it's been a year, but you know, our office in Tempe, you know, you guys have big double doors and things like that out in New Jersey. We have a single door out of our office, and we have a single door out of the building. So we have taken the F2100 there in our office and taken it to do trade shows that are close to Phoenix. And so, and we can tell you how to do this, by the way, but you can put this printer on its side and take it through a doorway with ink in it. And along the lines of doing events, we say that, you know, hey, maybe there's an art fair and it's downtown, and you want to set up and do t-shirts. You could set up a tent, have your printer in there, and print through the weekend. Now, is it going to be the perfect environment? It's not. But as long as you get it back into its proper environment as soon as you can, everything's going to be fine. And obviously at these trade shows we do, there's no control over humidity. There's no control over temperature, things like that. When the air conditioning goes on, we know the show's about to open in 10 minutes. Other than that, we're in some pretty extreme cold and heat, but the machine's going to work fine. Now, not all direct-to-garment printers work that way. There's some printers where if you look carefully at a trade show, you'll see they have a humidifier under the machine just to keep it running. But you don't have issues like that with an Epson DTG printer.
Right, that's an excellent point. So we should talk a little bit about temperature and humidity.
Absolutely.
One of the other things I like to say to customers is, if you're comfortable, the printer's comfortable. So there are specs that are printed by Epson, but we have found at Equipment Zone, we've been selling for thousands of these printers over the past 8 years. And our tech people like Roy and some of our other folks, they have taken thousands of support calls. By the way, we will support you for the life of your printer, even if you didn't buy it from us, because we want you to be successful. So
right.
Talking about being comfortable, if your humidity is, I would say between 40 and 60%, you're in good shape. 50% is always really nice. You can get a hygrometer, which will tell you that. Temperature wise, again, you really don't want to get it too hot and you don't want to get it too cold. So if you're comfy, it's comfy. So I would say between 60 and 80 degrees is a really good temperature to have the equipment at. Jay, you want to put that slide up there we go. So these hygrometers are very inexpensive, and they're probably the best investment you can make in your printing facility, because it's going to tell you what your room is like, and it will just help you get a sense of where you are. It's not a hard and fast rule. If you're 55% humidity or 45% humidity, not a reason to get nervous. But you certainly don't want to be in 25% humidity or 80% humidity. Then you'll have all kinds of problems with your shirts. I mean,
Right.
Humidity in the air is going to get into the fibers of those shirts, and then you're going to have problems when you go to print. So once again, if you're comfortable, the printer is comfortable.
Amy, I see, especially in forums on the internet, things like that, someone will say, well, I don't, I'm only at 25% humidity, but I don't have clogging issues, so I'm okay. That's not the only thing to concern yourself with, because you will also see people online talking about, well, my printer goes through all of these auto cleanings all the time. It's like every hour, it seems like it's going through a cleaning. Well, that has nothing to do with what the machine that you own. That has everything to do with humidity, because here's what happens with a direct-to-garment printer. And this is true of all direct-to-garment printers. If the humidity is too low, then the print head will start to overheat. How do you cool a print head? You force water through it. Where does the water come from? Your water-based sink. So when that machine is going through automatic cleaning after automatic cleaning, all of a sudden, you're printing and it just keeps doing these cleaning cycles. It's almost always your humidity. And hey, Roy, what's the humidity that you maintain right there in the shop?
About 45%.
Mm-hmm. We have a humidifier, obviously, because Roy, myself, and Jay, we're in Phoenix, where our average humidity is about 10%. So,
It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat, exactly, until it's 115, and it's just hot.
But if you're in Texas or Louisiana, these are things in Florida. These are things you want to be mindful of.
Well, we have a humidifier there, and we just set the humidity level on it, and it kicks on and maintains that humidity. But we have a good friend, Dane Clement from Great Dane Graphics. He's in New Orleans, and he has an Epson DTG printer. So he has to do things like maybe pre-heat press that shirt, even not to lay the fibers down, but to drive the moisture out. So those are some of the things you need to think about as you're doing this process. So.
And pockets in Washington and Delaware and even New Jersey, we get our humidity.
Sure.
So dehumidifiers then become important. So out west, it might be a humidifier, but on this part of the world here in New Jersey and on the East Coast, you might want a dehumidifier, because too much humidity and, it's just not good either. So you don't want extremes. I guess that's the lesson. The takeaway.
Exactly. And Amy, just like you said, you really need to have any DTG printer in more of an office type environment. And as you said so well, if you're comfortable, your machine's got to be comfortable. So obviously below 32 degrees, it's water-based ink. That's a disaster. Above 95 degrees, and it's going to be evaporation of your ink as well. So let's talk a little bit more about the next steps. And we have these marked as 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And then if you do all these categories out of 10, you're going to get that perfect print. These are, we kind of debated about the importance of each of these things. And so maybe a 4 is really a 2 and a 6 is really a 4. But what we want to do is we want to talk about these environmental and maintenance issues to get that level 10 print. One of those things is shaking the ink carts. And when you turn your printer on in the morning, right there on the menu screen, it's going to say shake your white ink. Now you could lie to it and say, yeah, I did that. And it's going to let you lie to it, but don't. All direct to garment printers, you need to circulate that white ink. So you just take them out, and when Roy's doing his demonstration, maybe Roy, you can show us shaking the white ink. We're not talking about vigorously shaking it and filling.
We're not doing the Macarena here. We're not
doing that. We're just gently shaking those cartridges for a few seconds. And like, as I said, Roy, when we do your part, maybe you could demonstrate that for everybody, because nobody really knows. But you need to do that because you need to get the solids in that white ink moving. You don't really need to worry about the color ink in that scenario. Epson recommends shaking the coloring once a month. I think any amount of printing that you do is going to move that ink around as much as you need it to do. And speaking of white ink, the white ink and all the color ink actually on the Epson printer, it has a shelf life of 2 years. So you can have that ink sitting on your shelf and ready to use, so that you don't have to do last minute ordering, because there are machines on the market where the white ink has a 90-day shelf life. So that ink is not going to be sitting on your shelf waiting for when you run out of ink. So it's really important that you can have inventory of ink on the shelf. And Amy, you also mentioned along these lines about turning your machine off at night. Epson recommends that you turn it off. And, there are people who leave theirs running. It's going to go through the same process. What happens when you turn the printer off is it's going to go through an automatic cleaning. It'll stay on for about 5 minutes, but it's going to automatically clean, run cleaning solution down through its own slot in the capping, or in the print head. And you're not going to lose any ink in that process. But what it's really doing is flushing out the capping station, because a lot of people don't realize they assume that because there's ink in the print head, that's causes clogging. The real culprit is that capping station getting clogged with ink. It can't suck the ink through. That's when people have clogging issues. So what we're doing at night when you turn the printer off is basically flushing out that capping station. If you leave your printer running 24 hours a day, at about 20 hours, it's going to do that process anyway. So it's not going to hurt you either way, but you don't have to leave it running. And I'm sure Roy has some comments on that, Roy.
Yeah, I sure do. It doesn't do it the same if you leave the printer on 24/7. So if you turn it off, it goes through a slightly different cycle, and it does it appropriately, I could say, when you do it that way. So.
And the reason that it does a cleaning at 20 hours is because we certainly have customers who run 24 hours a day. We right here in Phoenix, we have a customer who runs 3 shifts, so they don't get the opportunity to turn off those machines until Friday night or
that
Saturday
says a lot
morning.
about the printer. If you can run it for 20 hours like that and be able to get consistent good results, and Epson is definitely doing something right. I wanted to point out a little tidbit here. So the 2100, the F2100 was the first printer that in Epson's array of printers that allows you to actually access the printhead and clean the capping station. Well, they are integrating that now into their other product lines, their dye sublimation lines and their solvent lines. So it speaks to the fact that the 2100 was really designed with an engineering viewpoint of how to make sure it was as trouble-free as possible. And I guess it was successful because now they're putting them in the other printers as well, the ability to do that.
Right. And now if you have an F2000 out there, it doesn't do that automatic cleaning. You know, you're taking the drops and you're putting them into the capping station manually. And I've certainly talked to many owners where I've said, now, are your operators doing that? Yes. And are you certain? They tell me they do. Oh, okay. So by automating this, Epson is making sure that that cleaning process is happening every single day. So speaking of, Amy, you just mentioned the capping station, and I'm going to have Roy comment on this. The capping station can get a little bead of ink around the outside edge of it. And if you let that build up, then the print head can't seat properly. It's going to introduce air into the print head while it sits there. And so you do need to clean it. And by cleaning it, I'm talking about basically just wiping it with a swab, or if it's dried, you can pick it off with tweezers. But some of our techs, Roy, say do it every day. Epson says do it once a week. What's your feeling?
On the, which one?
Wiping the capping station?
Or the capping station?
The actually cleaning around the capping station.
Oh, well, the capping station is the part you get with your cleaning set. You're not supposed to put any solutions on that.
Right.
Because of the type of rubber that they use, and you're replacing it quite frequently.
Right.
But I do inspect it, basically use my finger to wipe across it to make sure there's nothing dry on it. And if there is, then I will use a lint-free paper towel, like the blue shop towels, to wipe across there, typically. And if there is something that needs to come off, then just a little cleaning solution on that paper towel. I don't want to use one of the swabbing sticks because that holds a little too much solution.
Okay.
And it's going to saturate it a little too much.
You know, just as a point, one of my dear friends at Epson has an analogy. When people ask him, well, you know, Epson says once a month, but, you know, some people say once a week. And here's what he says. He says, look, I have a car. Now I'm supposed to take care of the oil every, 20,000, 30,000 miles. He says, I do it every 10,000 miles, because if I do it every 10,000 miles, that car is going to last me a whole lot longer. So I think Roy takes the position, cleanliness is the way to keep your equipment running beautifully.
Yeah, when it comes to the capping station, as far as the suction cap cleaning, it says once a week on the chart that you get with the printer, which we're going to show you in a moment. As far as that goes, I tell customers, if you're super busy, do it twice a week. There's nothing wrong with doing it more than once a week.
Yeah, and I think that's an excellent point, Roy, when you talk about the amount of time you use that the printer is going to really determine how often you clean as well. You know, and Roy, you mentioned in the printhead cleaning kit, you do get the fabric wiper, you get the printhead capping station, you get the printhead flushing pad at the same time. What we see on the screen here is the chart that you get from Epson. If you don't have this, you can certainly download it from the Epson website, or reach out to our techs and we can get you another copy as well. But and you know, there's not a lot on here to really concern yourself with. You know, basically the things we've already told you. You know, shake the white ink. We're going to talk about doing nozzle checks here in just a minute, but not very much maintenance that any of us have to do regularly. The machine does really maintain itself. But Roy, why don't you show us a little bit about cleaning and what you do as and obviously this is what you train people when people buy machines from us as well.
All righty.
All
Just
right.
give me 1 second here.
Going back to that chart while Roy gets ready, you know, it might be nice to print that chart and hang it up near the printer. That way, if you have other operators, they can look at that at a glance and see whether or not they've done it, or make sure that they do it. Because, you know,
Absolutely.
if you run extra shifts, not everybody is going to remember it, but if you have something up on the wall, that will definitely remind you.
Well, can just leave that up for a quick sec. I just want to kind of highlight something real quick. Obviously, we emphasize shaking the white ink. The next thing I'd like to emphasize is basically the nozzle check. You need to do that daily. The object of the startup cleaning on the Epson printer is to get a perfect nozzle check every time. If you're in a good environment, as we've been discussing, you're going to pretty much get a good nozzle check most of the time, especially when the printer's new. So what happens is we get tech calls, and people will say that they're having issues printing. When was the last time you did a nozzle check? And there's silence on the phone. Because they've gotten so many good nozzle checks, they start neglecting checking it. And you really need to do it. It only takes a second. And then make sure that if there is any nozzles missing and you have to do print head cleaning cycles and do more than one or two, ultimately that refers to the suction cap cleaning, and you're not doing an efficient job with that. Because if you're doing a good job there, then you shouldn't have to do any follow-up cleaning cycles if you're in a optimal environment. So that's the key thing to keep in mind with that.
Hey, Roy, could you also comment about, let's say just the yellow on the nozzle check is broken. Could you talk about a little bit about the cleaning of that?
Well, if there's any colors missing, whether it be yellow, magenta, cyan, or black, those are less likely to clog, and it's usually caused by other issues. Again,
Right.
you could have some ink built up on your capping station, which comes with your cleaning set that you need to inspect. Or you could not be doing a good job again with the suction cap cleaning, and that's causing some issues with your color inks as well. So that would be the two things to look at. Now, I know
you don't have to clean everything, is what I was getting at.
That's correct. You can isolate the nozzles and clean sets of 2 at a time, the black and the yellow, or the cyan and magenta, or you can do the white 1 and 2, the white 3 and 4. So you can isolate them and do them separately rather than wasting ink and doing all of them at one time.
Right, right.
Okay. All right, so let me go ahead and give you a quick look at how I do everything. There's also a video that Epson has. So one sec, let me get in front of the printer here.
In the world of COVID, Amy, we have become very camera savvy. Have you noticed we have cameras everywhere?
Oh, I know. Our showroom in New Jersey is, I feel like I'm on a set on a TV series.
Right.
Yeah, so basically on the screen here that you can see Jay has up, it shows one white nozzle in the WH4 missing. And basically, if you can't see it on the tape, and that's something that's not in the manual as far as Epson goes. So I just wanted to make sure that people are aware that if you do a nozzle check, if you guys can see my camera, can you go to that shot there, Jay, and let my camera show? Okay, great. So basically, a lot of customers will put on your grip pad here. And when you get the printer, you get one platen. So if you haven't graduated and purchased any other platens, I see a lot of customers, it says in the manual to use a piece of paper. If you set up your printer to just run color ink, you can just use paper. If you set up your printer to do white ink, which is typical, you need to use something else. I hear people using blue painter's tape, which is hard to see the blue or the cyan ink. So typically what we do is we use a 2-inch clear packing tape. All right, so I will run a piece of clear packing tape across the center of the platen. I don't wrap it under, I just leave it hang off. And then I'll do a second piece on the first try here. that I'll go ahead and put right below it. That's how I train my customers, because there's a line of type with the date, the serial number, and the firmware version that is going to print. So if I do it centered, that little line of type will print on my canvas, which I don't want to have that happen. So typically what I'm going to end up doing here is go ahead and do my nozzle check real quick. Now my printer has been in standby, so it's going to take a moment to warm up here. But while it's doing that, as far as the shaking of the white ink, this is 5 to 10 seconds, nothing too vigorous. Both cartridges, and then put them back in. That's about all you got to do. And then when it comes to the cleaning set, while it's warming up, I'll go over that with you. So what you're getting with the cleaning set is your wiper pad, okay? Now there's a lot of videos online, just want to forewarn people, that show people how to rewind this to try to avoid replacing it. The key thing is replacing the items when they need to be replaced, and the reason is because the tapping station, the rubber is going to degrade over time. So I want to get this replaced. This is just as important as if I don't rewind this properly, it's plastic gears in here. So if something locks up on this, you can either break the gear here or, God forbid, inside the printer. And if you're out of warranty, you're going to have a service call on that. And it's really not worth doing that over a couple bucks. The other thing that you're going to be getting is a spit pad or mist pad. Basically, as far as how the printer works, or when the head is going through a cleaning cycle, talking about that suction cap, just so everyone understands, that suction cap is what moves the ink through the printer. It's like putting your mouth on a straw. So if there's any crud built up on there, air is going to get in like a straw that has a crack in it, and you can't suck whatever you're drinking up into the straw. So I'm going to have some issues filling my reservoirs above sets. Happen is sometimes you might throw the printer out of timing. Subsequently, what happens is if you end up getting your nozzles, as Terry mentioned earlier, the machine keeping itself cool because it's firing so quickly. I have, here, let me go ahead and do this nozzle check here. So basically, as I getting back to that, with the head firing so quickly, the head will overheat. And what keeps it cool is the ink flowing through the head. So if you run low of ink, you could be starving the nozzles. So what will happen is you can actually end up having the membrane burn out that actually actuates the nozzle to expel ink. So it's kind of like a funnel shape in layman's terms with a membrane. It gets electrical charge, vibrates like a speaker, and if it overheats, that membrane will start melting because of the electrical charge and the heat that's expensed. And then what happens is those nozzles will start dripping. And you might see a pool of ink inside one of these chambers. When you see things like that, you're probably having an issue with your head and you may need to have a head replacement. That's why you always want to stay on top of cleaning everything with your print, as well as checking your devices or your consumable items and making sure everything. So when machine goes through a cleaning cycle, it's going to do a kind of a plunger action with the suction cap on the head to dislodge that dried particulate. And then this pad, the head comes over to the left and will kind of blow its nose on it to get all that crap out of there. So you want to watch this pad too, because there's also another maintenance of cleaning around the print head. If you watch that video, you can scan the QR code on the front of the machine. It'll take you to all the videos. The head will actually grow a beard by getting ink on it, then picking up lint, more ink, more lint, and it'll start, hanging down and dragging across the shirt when you're printing. But if you keep this pad clean and watch it, if it starts to build up with ink, just take it out and rinse it out in the sink and put it back in, and it'll take a few days to start building up again. Then you don't have to worry about cleaning on your print head, which I check mine periodically. but I never have to clean it because no ink gets on it to begin with.
You know,
So-
Roy, that's another thing that is kind of a pro tip from the Equipment Zone techs about rinsing that out. I don't believe that's in the Epson manual, and obviously the tape on the platen is a pro tip from Equipment Zone as well, not in the Epson manual.
So basically you can see the nozzle check is on the tape. So I can come back here. So when the tape is on here, before I pull it off my first time, I'll go ahead and kind of give you a quick visual. I will take a pin and over to the side of my grip pad and make a little mark on each side just south of this line of type. So that way, next time I only have to use one piece of tape instead of two, because you're basically aligning the tape and moving it just a little towards the mouth of the machine. To see it better on the white channels, I have some good contrast with the dark black of the printer. Sorry, I put my finger through that. But anyway, that kind of gives you that. So I'm gonna go ahead.
And by the way, the Epson 3070 compensates for any blocked areas in your nozzle check as well. It will actually redirect the nozzles to compensate until you have an opportunity to clean.
You know, also keep in mind that you know, Roy is just filled with information, and it's so great to listen to him. I learn from him every time. But keep in mind that you can call our support people anytime when you've got a question about any of these technical issues that have come up and that we talk about. And our people are there for you for the life of your printer, even if you haven't bought it from us.
Exactly. As Amy mentioned before, if you bought your F2000 or your F2100 or your F3070 from a different vendor, we will offer you free phone support because, you know, Equipment Zone, our primary focus is direct to garment and sublimation. And so we feel that our techs are going to be able to help you through most anything other than, you know, a physical repair to the machine. They're going to be able to walk you through any kind of questions that come up like this.
All right, so do a quick suction cap cleaning for you. It takes about less than a minute typically. So you get a cleaning set that comes with cleaning sticks, 2 different sizes, okay? So basically you would end up getting one of each of them out and put them in your graduate, okay? And then you have your cleaning solution as well. The one thing I want to emphasize, you don't need to get a new cleaning stick every time, okay? You want to use them until they start falling apart, and then you're going to get new ones. I saw a comment, well, when they get black with ink, do I just grab another one and keep doing it until the wipes are clean or they're not getting any ink on them? Okay, so again, blue shop towels. Okay, I basically fold one in half and then rip it in half, and then I can use it for other things, and then I'll fold it again. So this is basically what I'm going to have to start my cleaning with. I'm going to put, the Epson video shows you about 1/4 of an inch of solution that the guy pours into the cup. That's a little too much, more than you need. You want enough for the sticks to absorb solution and leave a little bit left, okay? So then you put the lid on this, because if this spills, it could eat the paint off the machine if it's left for a prolonged period of time. So you don't want to do that. Then I'm going to go ahead and tell the machine I'm going to go and do a head cap cleaning. And it's telling me the platen's going to go back, so I'm going to let that go. And then once the head comes over here to the left, then I can go ahead and come in here and clean my suction cap. So the other item that Epson has that they give you is some tweezers that fit down in here on the bottom right. Okay, so I'll have those available in case I need them. Okay, and then now I can open the lid and I will bring the camera over here so you can see everything inside. So this is my capping station. Okay, so I basically just check it. Like I said, you can feel if there's anything rough on it. Typically, you don't want to put cleaning solution because it will degrade the silicone rubber there. But you can see I have a little bit of white ink built up on there. And there was also a comment about black buildup there. What happens is the white ink, when it starts to dry, it almost resembles silicone, okay? And then it will get stained with all the other colors and subsequently be black. So when you're not cleaning it on a regular basis, it could actually create where it looks like silicone is coming off or the rubber is coming apart when you actually start cleaning it. If you see that, that's when you're going to need the tweezers to start pulling that off, because you got to make sure that you have a nice, even, level surface to come in contact with that head. Otherwise, you're going to have air coming in. The first thing that I will take this big stick and go down inside back and forth and just saturate it with the chemical on both sides. Well, kind of make it a mess, like clean paintbrush. And again, if there's any buildup, I'm going to spend a little bit more time to get all off. Otherwise, it'll build up more and more and more. It just gets worse and worse. So after I do that, I'm going to take my paper towel and just blot my stick to take off whatever residual ink, and that pertains to having to use a new stick every time. I could blot it and continue to use it back and forth if I needed to. So I take my smaller stick. That allows me to get in the back where the plastic and the rubber intersect, and in the front as well. And if there's any smaller areas, okay, that I need to deal with, I can focus on them with a smaller one. And again, blot that. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my cup and take the residual of the cleaning solution with my lint-free paper towel. Now this is wet. So if there's any ink splatter in my machine that I need to deal with on any of the components, this is my time that I can use this to clean all that up. And then finally, I will use it to wipe across my cap to wipe off all that excess cleaner and ink that was saturated on there to completely clean that off on both sides. So you could see a little bit of ink down inside of there. If that bothers you, you could take and just stick the paper towel kind of down inside that channel, and that'll pull all that out of there as well. And that's basically it. Now, if you, for whatever reason, have suction cap errors, this is a flossing brush. So you could use a little bit of cleaner, and there's a hole in the front of that cap, and there's a hole in the back of the cap where the line is. Sometimes that'll get a buildup of ink, and you'll need to go back and forth to get that extra dried ink out of there so you get better suction if you're getting those suction cap errors.
So Roy, excuse me, that flossing brush, that's what you buy in the grocery store, correct?
This is a standard flossing brush for flossing your teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. You can get a bag of them for like $2 or something like that.
Another pro tip that is not in the Epson manual.
And basically, at this point, that would conclude doing that cleaning. And then you just tell the machine to go ahead and move the head back. And I'm going to show you one last thing before we finish here.
So does that take about 5 minutes, Roy?
Usually, if you're on top of it, I get it done in less than a minute.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, reaching over the printer from, an awkward position takes a moment, but that's basically it. Less than a minute, typically, if you're on top of it all the time. As you can see, mine, there wasn't hardly any ink on my sticks because I clean mine regularly and stay on top of it. And you could see there's not a lot of ink inside of here as well. I had a four-year-old machine almost, a 3.5-year-old machine that we just replaced with a newer one. but that one looked just as good as this one does on the inside. So here
And we didn't
is
replace
the,
it because it had gone bad or anything. We just brought a new machine into the office. So
exactly. So basically, still original head in that machine, by the way, too. This is your spit pad or mist pad, and this is the ink that I'm talking about that's pulling up. So if it starts pulling up like that, I will use my other half of the paper towel to just blot that out. And if I'm blotting it every day on a daily basis, I will just pop it out of here by pushing it this way and then lift it up and take it to the sink and rinse it out really good. And then it'll take 3 days or 4 days to actually start building up on it again because the ink will flow through pretty good. So basically, that would conclude going through and cleaning the machine.
we have a few questions here, Roy, also that Dan Campbell asked if you he has a 2000 and he says his two white ink cartridges are reading, he knows they're 35 to 40% full, but they're reading empty, and asking if that would be a bad chip or a bad reader.
Typically, if your cartridges are reading empty or lower than they actually are, then that would lead me to believe that you're not getting a good flow of ink through the system and your nozzles are clogging more likely than not on a regular basis. So the chip is going to read when the printer says it's pulling ink from the cartridge. If there's no ink being pulled, again, because the suction and all that's hindered or the nozzles are clogged, it's going to show that the actual cartridges are going down even though they're not.
This is false reading. That's very interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. Speaking of which, this is one common mistake that most people do. I'm having issues with my white channels because this is the most common thing that happens. I'm going to do a tube wash, or I'm going to do a replace white ink mode and order the cleaning cartridges, order some extra white ink, and then go through that process to find out they pull the cartridges out because the nozzles are clogged really bad. They think that's going to fix it. And I'm not discrediting anybody by no means and thinking that. But again, if my suction cap has an issue pulling ink through the system, there's no way replacing or trying to do one of those flush modes is going to solve that issue. The nozzles have to be unclogged first. You have to address that first. And there's ways to do that. If you're out of warranty, we can help you with a couple tips and tricks to avoid buying a new head. But if that doesn't work, that's your last resort. And that's usually caused by not following the procedures, not doing your nozzle checks, and then waiting until it's too late. And then all of a sudden you have an issue and you're trying to now save yourself from having to spend $3,000 to $4,000 for a head. And I throw that number out because it depends on where you're located. The further a rep has to drive, the more travel time and the higher the cost is going to be. So the more remote you're going to be, the higher the cost of head replacement is going to be.
And of course,
and if there's other parts needed, what was that?
That's for out of warranty.
Exactly.
Yeah, in warranty, so, there's nothing out of pocket.
Doesn't matter how far he has to travel in warranty.
Exactly. The warranty, again, now I guess we I don't know if we mentioned, you can extend it up to 5 years if you're still under warranty and continue to do that, which is well worth it if you're making money off the machine. Again, it resorts back to the oil scenario that Amy used, taking care of your equipment and making it, work properly so it makes money for you day after day.
And
so
Dan,
hopefully that answered all the questions.
Yeah, Dan, I will also tell you that if that cartridge is partially, it's now it's always kind of a little bit of ink in it because they overfill the cartridges. But if it has a substantial amount of ink in it, call Epson support and they will generally replace those for you. So let's see, a question about the resolution on Garment Creator, and I hear this sometimes, Roy, and I'm sure you do too. When they pull up an image in Garment Creator, the image isn't very crisp. You want to explain that to them? It's from anonymous attendee.
Yeah, okay, so when you're in Garment Creator, you have a preview on the screen. Now you can go into your configuration menu and increase the quality of what you're seeing on your preview, just like you can in your computer when you're using Photoshop or Illustrator, things of that nature. But the thing is it has to rewrite every time you make a change within Garment Creator, okay? Because it's calculating how much ink it's going to be using as it's going to print. So as it does that, if you're at a higher resolution, it slows down the software. So if you want to see something specific, go to configuration, go to highest quality for preview, and then when you're done looking at that specific file, go back and change it back to the default. Otherwise, you'll be sitting there waiting for it to change every time you make a change within Garment Creator.
Couple of more quick questions. Roy, somebody asked about the brand of humidifier. Where do you normally send somebody to get a humidifier?
Home Depot. The brand would be Air Care. Make sure that you purchase one that takes a tank that you fill up with water. There's the ones that are no-no are in-home humidifiers for when you're sick that spray a mist. Okay, that creates condensation, and electronics and condensation do not mix. You know, you don't want to have any rust buildup or anything going on with your electronics, because that may void your warranty depending on where you're at. So don't want to recommend that. The Air Care is an industrial type that has it works like a swamp cooler. It wicks water up into a cloth or filter that's made out of like paper, and it blows air through that. It has an automatic setting. It turns on when it needs to, it turns off when it's done, and then it gives you a little F to tell you that the thing needs to be filled. Now in Arizona, as Terry mentioned, in the hot of the summer, we're filling that container every other day. But normal times, it's 3, 4, 5 days, maybe even a week before we have to fill it up. And getting back to, even if you're in the most humid environments, other than, I would say, Louisiana, that area, I haven't seen too high of humidities indoors other than there. But in the wintertime, if it gets cold and you're running that heater, you're going to suck your humidity out of the air. So if you're in an environment that gets really bad winters, your humidity could be down to 10, 20% in a heartbeat running your heaters. So I got customers that are running humidifiers in areas that in the summer, it's really humid. But in the wintertime,
it's very dry, you know?
Yeah,
There is
exactly.
extremely dry.
So you might need a seasonal humidifier from that aspect. So
exactly right.
Keep that in mind as well, because prolonged time in out of the proper environment is going to snowball effect with the issues with the printer. So if you're dipping below 40% periodically, it's not that big of a deal periodically through the week. For an hour here, even a day, it's not going to be an issue. But if it's every day, day after day, you're going to have a problem.
Okay, Roy, lightning round, a couple more quick questions. The question is, what about the filter below the spit pad? When does it get changed?
There is no filter below the spit pad. It's just a reservoir that goes to the hose out of the back of the machine.
Right. I'm not 100% sure I understand this question, but I'll toss it out there. Is there a way to print the white last and not first in any print mode? We certainly can print with a highlight white. I'm not sure beyond that what that question means.
No way to print the white last. If someone is asking, can I just print, say, white type and not put an underwhite underneath my color? Yes, you can do that. You can do that under white management, and it's by turning the underwhite off. Okay. So that'll remove that.
Last easy one. Is the maintenance chart also good for the F2000 printer?
The maintenance chart is similar on the 2000. If you need one for the 2000, that one refers to the tube washing to do on a daily basis, which the 2100 does not. But everything else on there is pretty similar other than the tube washing.
All right, very good. Well, I think that is,
Download that if you need it on the Epson website.
I'm sorry, Roy, I talked over you. Could you say that once again?
You can download that as well from the Epson website.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, I think that covers all of our questions. And in 2 weeks, we're going to be back talking about curing as number 5 on your Equipment Zone DTG Printing Index and getting that perfect print. We certainly want to thank everybody for attending today. Jay, I think you have a couple more slides you want to talk about joining our Facebook group, the Epson 2100 DTG users group. We'd love to have you guys join. It's a group where I know Roy spends a ton of time there answering questions for people, all positive. We don't let anybody in there, no whiners. So only people that have legitimate questions, and lots of users in there that are there to help you out. If you would like to reach out to any of us, Roy, Amy, myself, you can reach out to us at all of our names at equipmentzone.com. And this recording will be up in probably about a week. And as I said, we'll announce, but it's probably going to be 2 weeks from today when we are back. Certainly our website is equipmentzone.com. There are our email addresses that we can share with you. There's a toll-free number, and any questions about today's event, you can email any of us individually or call 800-408-0040. Support is 201-797-1504.
Or you can go on our website for support.
Exactly right. And there is a place on the website under support where you can actually do your own support ticket. So after hours or whatever, put it in there, and we will be happy to get back with you. We, meaning Roy or some of the other technicians who know much more about this than Amy and myself. And other than that, we want to thank everybody for attending. You guys want to have any last comments?
Thank you all. And as we said before, we're all here for you.
Yep.
Exactly
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time today. In reference to the Facebook, good reference point for after hours, weekends, if you need help. The other thing is our more advanced users do share things on there of things that they're doing that's new that can help some people that are just growing and expanding to learn some new things to start printing on as well.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we will see you here in 2 weeks.